It's time to break up with your inner critic and find your caregiver. I'm partnering with Green Mountain at Fox Run to host the first ever Be Her Now Body Kindness Weekend, just for women. Join me Thursday, June 1st through Sunday, June 4th for a weekend of love, fun, and self-care. You'll experience Green Mountain's world-renowned program and brand new body kindness spiral up activities, all in the natural beauty of Vermont. Let's take the time to work on ourselves, heal with others, and get inspired to create a better life. Learn more at fitwoman.com/bodykindness. Because real health is about being good to yourself, it's time for Body Kindness, the place where all bodies fit and weight is just a number. Hi, I'm Rebecca Scritchfield, author of the book Body Kindness, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and host of this podcast. Plus, once a month, I check in with my good friend Bernie Salazar, the season 5 at-home winner of NBC's The Biggest Loser, and another former chronic dieter, on how we're doing at our own body kindness practice for mutual support and accountability. And it is that time of the month for us where I do my check-in with Bernie, and I'm so excited to have you here today as we finish out National Nutrition Month and have a conversation about food and body kindness.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Rebecca, it's always good to be here with you checking in.
I know. It's like, oh, it's our little appointment.
It cracks me up because this monthly thing goes so much quicker than you think it would. And I'm pretty sure the listeners out there feel the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, we're checking in again.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. So let me think. Well, so my month has been, in a word, unpredictable. And usually, I believe in managing your time and trying to do the best you can with that. And I think that hasn't really changed. But the girls got sick a couple times. I got a bad cold. Just things that, you can't avoid. But there was just extra stuff. So missing school, rearranging work, just all the things that you do to take care of your family. And then when I got sick, I was like, I can't, I'm not working out with this cold. It hurts to breathe. I'm not going to go exercise right now. But I also notice I really do feel like physical activity for me is kind of like breathing or nourishing myself. It's something I look forward to and something I feel like I need. And so when I miss out on it, I just notice that it's like the falling of the dominoes where my mood feels off. And so I've had lots of different, I would say, body kindness challenges in the sense of just kind of doing my self-care routines so it's easy, like, atta girl, woo, spiraling up all the time and having it effortless. And really the challenge for me has been about, it's like I'm in Space Invaders. I'm probably showing my age there. But like I'm in this video game and I'm like battling, the aliens in their spaceships, and I'm trying to shoot in that direction. And the second you shoot in one direction, you got to shift to the other direction and shoot that way too. And then, oh my gosh, somebody came out of nowhere, this big monster ship, and destroyed you.
I love it.
So I'm just trying not to get destroyed.
Well, I think you're doing pretty good, because I think what you just mentioned was real life. And I know that you're not the only one who experiences that. And, I have definitely had similar situations this month, especially with the kids getting sick. I don't know, it's maybe just this time of year where the weather's just fluctuating back and forth, but that can seriously put some awesome routine to a halt, where you're really trying to figure out, what do I do now that I can't necessarily leave my little one alone because they are this sick, or just a ton of different things. This month, Rebecca, I'd have to tell you that for me, it was a little bit of the opposite, and it was almost a little too routine. And I hate to say it, or it sound as though it was a huge hindrance, but I got really bored this month. And there was no spice. There was no little event. I think that every once in a while, you need a little jolt, like, oh, yeah, I guess I am in this. So I was kind of doing the complete opposite of you, but I feel like that a couple times led to me kind of just being like, well, whatever. When it comes to maybe pushing my body a little bit more, or, being a little bit more active with the little one, that coupled with the weather, I was just I hibernated a bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's, they call it a February funk, but I think that occurs in March too, where we are just now starting to get out of hibernation. And, certainly I do think boredom is something to be aware of. It's interesting. So the more you identify as I'll take exercise, the more you identify as a regular exerciser, right? We adapt to what we've always been doing, and our muscles learn how to do it, but also our brains learn the routine too. And that should be good. Yay, we're an exerciser. Let that be enough. But we are reward-driven creatures, and we gotta have our dopamine drug that says, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. And so that could be part of what you're dealing with, is that it is becoming routine. And yes, for your health and well-being, it matters that you're doing exercise consistently, less that you're having a great time, But we lose motivation when we don't get that dopamine reward.
Well, absolutely. And for me, and I've told you this in the past, I battle with identifying as, that routine exerciser. It's a struggle for me to even say that out loud, but yeah, I find myself definitely sometimes getting too much into a routine, and so much so that, I'll find myself trying to race against the person next to me. I can't wait till I get out there and do some, races or 5Ks or some type of activity that kind of lets me channel that competitive spirit that I have, which is odd because it really is just when I'm out there moving my body that I'm more competitive than I usually am day to day.
That's interesting. Were you always like that, or was that?
No, never. Okay. Well, I can't say never. I did play Little League and growing up, and just baseball in general. And I was definitely competitive in that arena, just with that sport. But no, outside of that, I wouldn't say that I was someone, if we're playing a pickup game of basketball, I'm not going to plow you over trying to get a rebound. So no, I guess not. But I think I know where you're going with this. And I can definitely say that my experience on that show definitely led to me equating moving my body with competition, period. Because even if we were just doing a morning workout on the show, you still had in the back of your mind, I better do it more intensely at a quicker pace than the person next to me, or this could be the last week of me working out on the show and going home. And it's so funny because I started moving my body as a result of the show, and part of it didn't click over for me that I could still move it afterwards if I got eliminated. It just kind of it just shuts it off. It's like, oh, I'm at home. I guess I can't move now. So it's funny how you start thinking that way when you're in that type of scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think for you, there's some reframing that needs to go on, right? So if at all possible, to choose to do activities that don't remind you of the show. If exercise in general reminds you of your experience, then that's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
But you've always struck me as someone who prefers to find the playfulness in activities. I know you really care about kids and physical activity, in positive ways. And so, but certainly doing any amount of reframing work can be beneficial to remind yourself that was a challenging time. And I think it was a traumatic time for you, right? So that was challenging.
Yeah,
that was traumatic. But that's not the present moment. And this is what's more important for me to focus on instead.
Well, yes. And I think what is interesting is, I am practically almost, I'm 10 years out almost. It's 9 years
Mm-hmm.
coming up on 10. And it's really interesting how much it sticks with you. But when that's what you were introduced to,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how you view it and how you see it. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not the only one, definitely not the only contestant who sees it this way, or past contestant, but also, there's out there that maybe equate working out or how they worked out or the intensity with maybe being a high school athlete or a college athlete, or
Mm-hmm.
even that little leaguer who was, the slugger and known for their sporty prowess. I don't know. I just, and it's interesting as you mature in your thinking about health and wellness, how certain aspects of it still are linked to your past, so much so that maybe sometimes that's getting in the way of you discovering something more fun or more effective, or something that's going to create a lifelong habit as opposed to a temporary, diet minded fix.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of thought patterns anyway. So, I normally talk about thought patterns like related to food and eating, but the thought patterns that you repeat become your beliefs. And so and exercise is punishment in the show, somebody who was a competitive athlete and just isn't competitive anymore. And so it's hard for them to reframe exercise that way. Someone who struggled with compulsive exercise would have difficulty reframing exercise as a way to take care of the body and something joyful. And similar, like any chronic dieter that was, the frame becomes the only reason why I'm doing this is to lose weight. And I certainly have seen that in my practice, where it's like they come in and I hate exercise. The only reason why I would do it is in order to lose weight. And it's like, you're dealing with a difficult situation where stuff needs to be broken up and then reset to a healthier mindset, to one that is about body kindness, is about self-care, that is flexible, but still consistent. When you say, I'm still trying to work on identifying as a regular exerciser. Well, the way you identify it like that is by becoming a regular exerciser, by making it part of your routine and finding ways to have it work for you. And, if anyone listening, if the goal is, if the health related goal that matters most is I want to live a long time, we do have the scientific evidence that shows that with what's in your control, things like physical activity are more important than what you weigh for longevity. And I believe the stat is around 14 to 16% of chronic disease and like death related to chronic disease is about 14 to 16% for physically inactive, but it's only 2% for obesity. So it's much more important to have that activity. And but it's not like something we're always looking forward to doing, and it could just be a routine. I got my workout in today. It was my tough solid core class, and it's not like I'm dancing out the door and can't wait. What I couldn't wait for was I actually adjusted my calendar and finally just said, you know what? I'm not taking the girls into school today. Andy's going to have to do it. And you know what? I am not going to do this important work thing because I've been putting myself last, adapting to the sickness and other work demands. And it's like, no, this is not who I am. I don't care what I have to do. This workout is happening. And so that felt like body kindness. And I'm glad now that it's over. I'm glad I did it. Felt like body kindness, but it's one of the challenging things I do. So there were parts of it that I wasn't like joyfully smiling, but I was still doing it because of the meaning behind. That's the thing I do to challenge myself. And I go to yoga when I want to, love myself and stretch my body. They're two different things.
And that's interesting too, because what you're saying, I don't just participate in the podcast, I listen to it, and, it just kind of reminds me of what Ali Krieger said about her valuing so much so making sure that meals were made in the home and that she was making them, and how she made that a priority. And there were times where she had to push other things away to make sure that she was preparing meals in a healthy and nutritious and nurturing way for herself and her family. And that's hard for people to hear because we might have listeners out there thinking, well, of course I value this and of course I do this, but there's things that just have to be done. And coming from that place sometimes, Rebecca, you have to sometimes just take a step back and think to yourself, well, this is important to me. This does make me a better person. This does make me able to be supportive of those around me, or do a better job at professionally if I take this time for myself and make myself a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And, I think it is something that we all struggle with, reminding ourselves that we need to reshift the focus on how we're spending time and make it happen. And that's how we get kind of back to those spiral ups. I do want to switch and talk a little bit more about food. So how is it going with you in food this month?
Food for me has been really enjoyable lately, more so than even in our past conversations. I'm really happy to say one thing that I have been doing a lot of is preparing a ton of meals at home. And the reason why I've been doing a lot more of that is, of course, I have my little girl who I'm turning into quite the chef for. I'm just really doing a lot more grocery shopping. I really enjoy that. I feel like I know my way around my local grocery store a lot better. For a while there, I kind of felt some distance between the connection that I was making in even purchasing the food, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I've really started shopping smarter and enjoying it more so, being open to picking up new things instead of kind of going on autopilot and just going for what I normally would pick up and go and kind of know how to make right away. Everything from different types of squashes that I've been picking up to different types of fish that I don't even know how to make, but the internet is awesome, and sometimes it's a big hit and sometimes it's a big miss, but I'm out there trying, and it's really fun to be able to open up my palate in a way that it hasn't been open to new foods, and also to see my daughter explore those different sensations and textures and tastes. I get excited when she likes something that I can't stand. I don't like this at all, but look at you having your own, taste buds and digging it, and it makes me feel really proud. I'm just really, I'm so happy to say that I just have a different connection with it. And I'd like to, attribute that to being a father and to my daughter. Mm-hmm. It's been fun, and I can't say that it's been that way. But gosh, it hasn't been that way actually my entire life. So this is an interesting point for me.
That's awesome. So have you had any triggers to eat emotionally, or just no triggers at all? Or if you're triggered, you have ways of just managing it that are making you happy?
There's always triggers for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're not triggered, tell me your secret right now.
No, there are always triggers for me. Sometimes it's being overtired as a parent, or just being frustrated. I mean, I speak as though parenthood is the easiest, most magical thing, and I do feel that way. But there are times where the magic is running low, and there's definitely times that triggers me wanting to go and overdo it on things that I'm in my mind, craving or know that too much of isn't necessarily what I want to be doing with myself. What I have been doing, though, is I've been eating with my daughter. And I know that sounds, you're like, of course you have been. But I know in the beginning, I used to prepare things for her. They were prepared for her. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure there's some new parents out there, to their first kids that can relate to this. It's almost like, the first one's the heir, the second's the spare. So you want to make sure, that you're really nourishing them just super well. So I would make these things, and they were, gosh, if I had cameras on, I would have my own show. That's how good I thought I was making these things. But I wouldn't eat them. I would taste them throughout, but I just wouldn't sit down and have the meal with her. And you've given me books, Rebecca, and they're great books, and I read them, and I don't always listen to them. So I started just making one solid meal, well, not one, but I started making one main meal, per meal time. And just started sitting down and really enjoying those with my daughter. Mm-hmm. And what I found is I just feel better as a result of it. I know that the majority of my meals, 95% of them are at home. Why? Because that's what I want to make sure my daughter is eating. So I'm eating that way as well. I know what I'm putting in them is awesome and different and fun and tasty, because with kids, what's so cool about kids and the way they view eating is if it doesn't taste good, I'm not digging it. And they don't know about vegetables being good for you, or just sticking with lean meats, or maybe I should eat more fish. They're like, dude, if it tastes good and I like the texture and I can squish it in my hands, like, I'm going for it. It's really opened my eyes to, we've talked about it in the past, Rebecca, but this whole idea of good for you, bad for you, stay away from this, go towards this type eating. And to see it just in its purest, most natural way has been really fun for me, because I've been such a challenged eater. I've been at odds with food for the majority of my life, that it's fun to just see what it is. You just, in its primal sense, dude, this tastes good. This is awesome. I like it. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really interesting point, because a lot of what I deal with is when people are giving up the diet mentality and, detoxing from diets, trying to replace it with body kindness, working on intuitive eating, all these things. It's kind of like they get to this window for where they followed the rules for so long. They just have to have a window where they could just literally do whatever they want. And any sort of nudge toward, like, try the fish, or how about roasted broccoli, actually feels like a diet to them, because it's paleo or Whole30, or it's what they're doing, they're being good. And so it's like they feel on the one hand, they need a window where they don't think about health and nutrition at all. And on the other hand, they get scared about the types of foods they're choosing and how much, because they don't want that to go on forever, because they're kind of torn. It's like straddling these two sides between being in diet culture and always following that next diet and the rules and setting yourself free. And it's, I call it the messy middle, because it's going to be individual. You need to be where you need to be. I mean, it doesn't change the nutrition science and knowledge. Like, we're never going to erase the evidence that produce is good for you. Fruits and vegetables have fiber and vitamins and these things that we need, and microbiome, and we can cut out all the weight related stuff, and that's still going to be fact. But that doesn't mean, if you have to take a break from eating certain foods that are nourishing, right? But you need to take a break because it reminds you of diets. Take a break,
Well, absolutely. And what's nice too is, being able to prepare a meal for my daughter has given me the freedom to approach maybe something that I, in my mind, or had a bad experience with, or just didn't, thought to myself, I didn't like, and just prepare it in a different way. And I'm not there. I am not forcing meals down my daughter's throat. I'm making it. If she doesn't like it, hey, to the side, I'll reintroduce it in a week or 2 weeks or next month. And I'll look for a different way to prepare it. Where in the past I would have been like, I really just don't like that, and I'm probably never going to try it again. Where it's like, listen, I know that I want my daughter to have a nice, wide open palate, and to not fear food, just to be open to different types. So I don't just give up on her. I give up on her little taste buds. And through that process, I'm rediscovering my own.
Yeah.
And it's just been really cool. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. And that's, I think, a good example for people who maybe aren't as far as you are is to know that you might go through that process of being confused or just wanting to avoid stuff that is good for you and that you might even like, but then down the road is going to come, okay, I don't have such a strong diety critical voice. Now I want to pay attention to how food feels in your body. It's like people are so concerned about doing, you were so worried about doing dieting right, and now they're so worried about doing body kindness right or body positivity right. And don't look for another set of rules to follow, And so, I mean, I would say that most of the time before I make a decision about what I'm going to have, like, I notice that I'm hungry or that I need energy. And the next thing becomes, okay, is there something I'm in the mood for that is easily accessible, right? And that I know is good for me. Like, I pretty much think about that on the regular, and that's not dieting, right? I have no food fears. Like, we had ice cream and brownies for dessert last night, like it's not about that, but it was like, we looked around, oh, we have this fish we haven't used up that we can reheat. We'll just grab some vegetables with it. It's like, you can, just because you choose healthy food doesn't mean that you're doing diet stuff, but you just might need some time to feel that working for you. And that's what I hear you saying where you're at now.
Well, it's interesting too, Rebecca, because like when it comes to desserts, like right now, because my daughter is so young, I'm not going to indulge her right now because I know the effects that sugar has on her from her first birthday. Give her,
Tell me more.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll tell you right now. So I'm not going to just go straight for, something that I know is more processed sweet type deal. So what's so nice is I'm re-exploring, certain fruits or different things as more of a dessert where that just wasn't me before, and it's fun to see her really take to it and to develop her own little personality around eating. And something you said right now that I just think is so powerful is just, being free of fear when it comes to food. I don't ever want her to think that there's a bad food. I do want her to know that, food can be extremely nourishing and to give it some thought, but I don't want her to dwell on it in any way. So it's just been pretty interesting in that regard. Her first birthday, let me just go back to that real quick. Of course, we had the smash cake for her, and we had a really cute cake made for her, and she went at it. I mean, she is an awesome. My baby is an awesome eater, and I'm so excited about that. I really am, and it's funny because with my experience with eating in the past, again, it hasn't been the best experience for me. So just to see her be so open and such a good eater, I thank God every day that she's just so into exploring things. But she had this smash cake, and of course she went for it, and she got a lot down before we were like, okay, this is enough. And my poor kid stayed up for at least 3 hours past her bedtime, just kind of jumping and flopping. And I felt so bad as a parent just because I could see that she was tired, and I knew that the behavior wasn't normal, which I almost feel bad for saying it. It's like I was experimenting my own kid, but I got to see firsthand the effects of this foreign substance that she's not used to and how it affected her little body. And it made me think about how those types of things affect my body, and to a certain point how my body has gotten used to some of that behavior or that reaction. And how sad is that? It's almost like here I am, I'm a certain sense I've been hype, and it just doesn't affect me the same way. And that was concerning to me a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we have such this, like, sugar is the villain, mentality that is very, very unhelpful. But I mean, and of course, as parents, we don't want to do anything that could, be the wrong thing for our kid.
I mean, I didn't see it as bad. I just saw the way her little body reacted to this new food.
Yeah. I mean, one day Audrey loves, well, I do too. We all do. We love Nutella, so we always have it around, and we also have chocolate chips, and they're either asking for chocolate chip waffles or Nutella waffles or pancakes, and like they're asking for it like every day, which of course it's the sweet thing. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. They don't get it every day. For example, this morning we ended up I kept encouraging eggs, and they kept asking for something else, and then I finally said, then they asked for a bagel, and we have these like mini bagels, and I was like, oh, and I started with that and fruit, and I was like, okay, now eggs. And they did want the eggs. I gave them the eggs. And of course, they ate kind of a little bit of everything. And then they had egg left over before it was time to leave for school. And I said, do you want these to take to school? And they said yes. So I'm sure they ate the egg in the morning, you know, but back to the whole Nutella thing. There was a time where I was running late, picking up Audrey, taking her to ballet. And so literally I gave her a banana, like a plasticky, basically spoon spreader thing, and the jar of Nutella in the car seat while I drove her to ballet. And of course I see her and like her face is a mess and I'm wiping her down, running her into ballet. And afterward, I just happened to ask, oh, how will Audrey do? And they said, good, but she had trouble like sitting, watching while the other kids danced and everything like that. And I'm just, and I mean, I can't say for sure, but normally I make her a cheese sandwich, right? Or she gets like apple slices with peanut butter in the thing. Like it's just, I mean, I literally left her to her own 4-year-old devices with a giant spoon, and who knows how much she had. And it was a dance class to get out energy, but you also have to sit and watch the other kids. And so that, I feel like that's kind of what you were thinking, is this thought is probably like, okay, parenting fail, maybe not the best idea because they have no sense of regulation to just be like free for all. But I mean, she only turns one once, and that's not what you do on the regular.
Yeah.
And I learned that what we do now as a family in my house is that the morning of ballet, that in order for her to get to go, she has to have her clothes out in her bag and her snack, you know, nearby for me, so that no matter what happens when I need to leave to go pick her up, it's all there ready to go. And so today's ballet day. She has an apple and she has a homemade trail mix that has like Cheerios, raisins, nuts, and some chocolate chips. And that will be what she gets to fuel a ballet. And I don't think that's diety. That's not avoiding sugar. It's finding a way of moderation that works for you. But like, how is it influencing like your whole how dessert fits in your life situation?
So for me, you know, when I said parenting fail, it was just because I had seen how tired she was and how her little body wasn't letting her go down. That was the big thing. It wasn't her, you know, just eating, like you said, that happens once in a lifetime. And it was just a beautiful little thing to see how excited she got over this new thing. What I love is through exploring foods with her, I'm able to, again, just kind of see her palate open up so that, you know, when she's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, she knows that there's so many wonderful tastes out there and she doesn't get stuck to necessarily one thing. And to me, I feel like when I was growing up, it was always, you know, here's a packaged treat or here's something, you know, without really opening me up to different things. You know, I mean, there's some fruits that are fairly common that I didn't really have even accessible to me. You know, like I didn't know what a prune tasted like, or an apricot, or a fig, or you know, a kumquat. I mean, I had no clue. You know, a sumo mandarin I saw the other day, and I was like, oh, I got to grab that for her. You know, so it was just, we're just exploring different tastes, and absolutely, when she's a little bit older, and you know, I can't wait till she starts talking, you know, I would love to take her to some of the best dessert places in my town, but I want to make sure that we're talking about the experience, that we're that it's more about us kind of treasure hunting for that awesome dessert than it is just about the food, which is something that was never done with me. I think that if we're able to open our children up in that kind of way, that you know, hopefully they'll have a healthier relationship moving forward.
Yeah. And you're a few years behind me. So as you know, the challenges become different and everything like that. But yeah, you know, I mean, I just think, I guess my words to you would be, is it time for you to maybe think about different ways to challenge yourself with food? Like, do you need the experience of going out for a really good gelato and enjoying it and not feeling like you're going to need to loosen your belt or you're doing something horrible for yourself? Do you need positive dessert experiences in your life?
Yes. And let me tell you why. Because, first of all, a lot of the sweets that I've had in the past, and even now, they're not great. They taste good in the moment, but like, I need to take some time and find the best gelato in Chicago. Like, I need to find the best cookie. And of course, right, it's all subjective. But I mean, yeah, I think who doesn't deserve a dessert date night? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I like that idea. And, you know, as far as my relationship goes, no, I think that I've definitely done a lot of work and I don't feel guilty for that type of stuff. Now, there are times where I do have issues controlling the amount. Like, I'm thinking to myself, what if this is the last time this dessert is ever made? I better probably a little bit more into it. I gotta have another helping because this could be the last time this person ever makes this. So sometimes, yes, that's what I'll deal with.
Yeah.
But the guilt behind doing it, no, that's definitely more in my past.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just kind of notice, you know, that's maybe your body's way of saying this is good and I want more. And it's kind of trying to rationalize with you.
Well, at a certain point, it does, you know, I do go back to that, you know, kind of eating my feelings. You know, I can admit that, you know, I get excited about a good dessert. So sometimes I overdo it before I realize, oh my gosh, I overdid it. You know, it's not that I did it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something that I could work on. And Rebecca, I hope you don't mind, but I want to switch gears real quick because I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to, you know, speaking of the show, we have been kind of talking quite a bit about my experience on the show today. In the news recently, it did come out that trainer Bob Harper did suffer a heart attack while actually working out in a New York gym. You know, so I do want to take this time to kind of wish him a very speedy recovery. He's a great guy, you know, and a good trainer. Now, of course, we have our issues with just the show and the way that was set up, and we can go on and on about that. But I just want to take some time to kind of wish him a speedy recovery. But I also, you know, had brought this up to you before we got on the podcast, and you said something that really, really resonated with me, and I want to share that with your listeners. And you said something that just kind of goes to show you that body type or outward appearance doesn't necessarily dictate, you know, how susceptible we are to something like a heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, you said physical fitness level, I mean, you kind of just, again, I really got to start taking notes when I talk to you, but quote was off, but you definitely said, you know, here it is, you know, showing us that, you know, you never know. You never know.
Yeah. This is like the situation. We are constantly like what people will say, oh, well, but I care about your health, right? To someone in a larger body. Or it may be even more threatening. If you don't do something, you're going to die early.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, of course.
And it's weight stigma. I have, you know, when through socializing on Facebook and stuff, I've heard people share stories of like, yeah, my doctor's been telling me I'm going to die and get diabetes for the past 15 years. And every time he sees me, he says within 2 years, you know, and, you know, this is somebody's story. I don't know how accurate it is. Like, why would you go see the same doctor if that's the case? But I think here is a situation. I mean, nobody in a million years would have predicted that, you know, Bob Harper would have a heart attack. You know, I bet you if you took anyone who's had anything related to the show and did a chart over who has had heart attacks, like, I don't think that we would guess it would have been him. And it's an example of the strength of the genetics factor that plays into risk. So when we look at people's bodies and say, you're going to get sick, you're going to get diabetes, you're going to have a heart attack, that is weight stigma. What I found interesting about this whole thing is that we had just, you know, 2 podcasts ago, we had a conversation about your fear of avoiding the doctor and your fear that you were on your way to a heart attack. Turned out to be panic, anxiety, you know, just difficult life. You saw your doctor. you're the one that supposedly, right, based on your weight and height and BMI and everything, compared to Bob Harper, he's the picture of health, and you're the one who's going to die any minute now. And then you got your labs, and your labs told a different story. Now I don't know what his labs were, but clearly, he knew it was in his family. So hopefully he was monitoring his labs. I don't know how he was eating before, but I did see him post some stuff to Instagram that he's been advised to follow a Mediterranean style of eating. I won't use the D word. So who knows? What was he doing? Was he doing paleo? Was he doing Whole30? I mean, what was he doing? Mediterranean has been studied scientifically to be good for heart health and brain health. So that makes sense. So it's just, I like you. I do hope he gets better. And I also hope that he decides to do things differently. I mean, I don't know what the future of the show is or his involvement. And maybe this whole thing doesn't wake him up at all. But I would love nothing more than for him to actually think hard about the fact that his weight and shape and habits could not prevent his heart attack, and be more open to the idea of how do I help people with habits in a way that is not bullying, that's not body oppressive, that's part of behavior, and how can I be not judgmental of people in larger bodies? If he truly wants to make a living being helpful, that is in his hands. And if he doesn't choose that, then anyone else where my voice reaches, my goal is to help you to understand no matter what kind of body you're in, you should be good to it, take care of it the best way you know how. That's not with dieting. That's not by body bashing. That's not by being mean and being critical. That's by doing what you can to give yourself the time to change the habits that you feel you need to change. You gave yourself over a year to learn non-dieting and body kindness. Other people need to give themselves that time too. And you got to stop listening to the BS that blames your body as being wrong and then uses that in an excuse to threaten you for your life and your well-being. That shame is never going to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And there's several things. So, I mean, I went to the doctor really fearing the worst. And when I went there because I thought to myself, it's better to know what I'm up against. That was the mentality going in there. So when the labs came back and it found that I was pretty good, I was surprised.
Say the word healthy, Bernie. You're allowed.
I was healthy. I was very surprised, but I definitely went in there with the mentality, let me know what I'm up against. If I know what I'm up against, I can do this. Two, again, and I'll say it, in I love having these conversations with you. Bob always an incredible guy to me, off camera, super supportive. What a good guy. And that's, this is a really good opportunity for me to just come out and say that the majority of those personalities, whether it be him, Jillian, Dilvet, whoever the other trainers have been in the past, it's Hollywood people. Those are personas and a half. It's what keeps them on TV. It's what keeps them, getting the paychecks that they get. And they're smart and they're business people and they know that. Sometimes, Rebecca, and this is what you're a leader in, is, we are trying to shift this whole mentality of diet culture to body kindness and realize that, it's ridiculous what's been fed us so much. And yes, some of these trainers, the majority of these trainers have contributed to that. And, like you said, I'm sure with how smart of a guy Bob is, that this is going to really have him reassess what his role in this industry can be. And I do hope that he is able to kind of spread the word about the things we've been talking about more so that we can, again, let people know that it's time we start approaching health in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, to me, his first step would not be the most body positive person he could possibly be. But could you imagine if someone of his influence can even come out and say, like, I'm done focusing on weight, you know? I mean, the power that could have.
I'm super positive when it comes to Bob, and I do. I believe it's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. Yes, I think it's going to have a tremendous effect, and I think that Bob's at a point in his life. He's 50, I believe, and looks damn good, as far as taking care of himself and doing what he had to. But like you said, at the end of the day, that didn't compete with the genetics of what happened. I believe his mother, did suffer a heart attack around that age. So that was something that was in his family. And again, I'm getting this just from the news sources, just like our listeners out there. It's not like I have Bob on speed dial. We do not talk. I do believe that he's going to come out of this and be more of an advocate for reframing the conversation around health, because guess what? It's time. And whether he's the one coming out and doing it, things are changing. And like I said, Rebecca, you've been leading that, and it's already coming out there. So I think it's going to start changing this conversation dramatically. Because like you said, if you were to look at all the contestants or anybody on that show, and you were to have picked out which one would have, unfortunately experienced this heart attack, it would not have been the trainers. No. At least I wouldn't have.
No, not at all. So yeah. Well, I hope your prediction is accurate. I'd love to get him a book and mark the part where your story is shared, but that could just be a pipe dream. But at any rate,
send it to him. Why not? I'm pretty sure you can get a hold of it. But I
already had one negative situation where my book got thrown in the trash by somebody famous. So I don't know about that. But
wait, hold on. Listen, all press is good press, and obviously they weren't ready to hear it, and that's unfortunate because you got to remember too, a lot of what we're talking about is threatening people's core belief around wellness and health. And the same way that I talked about my struggles, in regards to reframing my relationship with food or with exercise and staying away from this non-competitive, or solely non-competitive take on moving my body, that's the same way that people are feeling about, the body kindness movement and body acceptance. And, I think there's so many misconceptions about what that means and how, I don't know. I know that before we started this podcast, I didn't understand exactly what that meant. I thought it was super huggy. It meant that you could do whatever, you can, and so long as you loved yourself, you were fine. And that's not what this is to me. And that's why I think I'm here still on your podcast and an advocate for what you're saying, because I've been taking care of my body in a way that I never have before, because it's the kind thing and the right thing to do for myself, where before I was coming from a place of, damn, I need to lose weight and get buff, because then and only then will I be worthy of being kind and caring to myself. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am proud to be your super huggy life transformer.
There we go. Who doesn't like a good hug? And on that note, I'm just going to send a hug out to Bob, even though I haven't talked to him in a while. I do hope he gets better, and I do hope that he kind of sees what's being shared by us over here and gets the word out to a lot of people. I think he could make a huge difference in this industry and in the lives of a lot of people. Yeah, Rebecca, it's always an awesome time with you.
Yes.
Always.
Real quick, my 2 challenges for you. So we'll talk again in a month at the end of April. Pick some sort of amazing dessert you go have just for the pleasure of it.
Oh my gosh, if I have to, I will.
Write about it and bring it back to the show, and then see how you can bust up your monotonous routine. So maybe something with fitness, and see how that changed for you, trying something new or exciting, or even just a reframe of fitness, and see how that worked out. Okay?
I love it. That is awesome homework. I'd like to challenge your listeners to do the same.
Ooh.
Like, I really would. Like, I think those are 2 great challenges. And I've been on the podcast for a while here, and I really want to hear from the listeners. Like, Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and just ask that they say, Bernie, this is the best dessert in my town, and just kind of hashtag whatever. I'm not good with hashtags. I know that's way too long. So I'm going to let you think about that. But I would love to hear and see some of these desserts on Instagram.
Nice. Well, they can use the body kindness hashtag since that's out there and it's easy for me to watch and follow. But I agree, anyone listening, if you want to have an awesome dessert and hashtag it body kindness, we will comment and share.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I love it.
Yes, thanks for coming on. I'll talk to you in a month. And for everyone else, don't forget to be good to yourself. The Body Kindness Classroom is coming. If you're ready for some radical collaboration, check out bodykindnessbook.com and check out Shop for more information. We're going to be having classes on body kindness calm and body kindness food. I'll see you in school.